You seem to still be up there somewhere.
Maybe I am. There are flying saucers.
Supposing they're Martians or something in there.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is...
Tobias.
Tobias, how was your weekend?
Oh boy, it was good. I've just been plugging away on the book, and so I've gotten into Lake Michigan Mothman territory, which I think I probably mentioned before. And I am working on a little section right now about the Prairie Creek Reservoir, which anybody who's been following this investigation into Mothman sightings in the Midwest closely is probably familiar with that area, but it had its own little spate of sightings back. They were reported back in 2019, but then that... and they occurred at various times. I don't know that any. Well, I don't want to say because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think like 2 out of the 3 of them at least occurred in 2019. They would have been years earlier, but it led to some interesting stuff with other people reporting like anomalous balls of light and weird shape-shifting shadow people and even some reports from the void type stuff. So it's an interesting little part of the Mothman lore at this point that has come out of this investigation. And so when I start talking about how things grew and expanded from those first 3 Chicago sightings, like this is an important part of it. So yeah, that's what I've been working on right now. I also noticed, and this is fun, when the calendar ticked over into September, which of course just happened. My Frank Frazetta calendar, which I love because he's one of, if not the absolute like favorite fantasy artist of mine. It's his Mothman painting.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, is this a coincidence? Is it because the Mothman Festival is also in September? Am I allowed to call this a synchronicity? Because I'm gonna.
I mean, who makes the rules, really?
Yeah, right. So yeah, I was like, wow, holy shit, this is the best. It's right, Mothman month for us, kind of. So.
Yeah, it is. You know what? Happy Mothman month. You're right. It is Mothman month. But it is interesting because, yeah, I guess it could be because of the festival. But, like, that's not the most significant, like, piece of Mothman. Like, I would say more November, right? Would make sense.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's when it all kicked off, yeah.
Or even December.
Like November of 66, yeah.
So... I don't think the synchronicity police are gonna come banging down your door. So
yeah, I'd like to see him try.
Right, come for me, synchrony or
exactly
synchronicity.
Right. So, but because the other part of it too is I was just like, well, I don't know who made this calendar, but do they even know or care about the Mothman Festival? Because let's face it, like most people don't give a shit about the weird stuff that we're into. Even within the paranormal. Relatively few people know or care who or what Mothman is.
Yep.
So, I mean, that might be kind of a stretch, but I guess you never know. So, who knows?
That's a synchronicity. You're going to see Mothman soon.
Yeah, synchronicity. I did. He's in my office right now on the wall, waiting for me. Yeah.
So. Every day. No, that's great. I think that's awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting when you kind of take a break from the Mothman stuff for a while, because you don't really take a break, but you do kind of take a break for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And then you start revisiting it and just how fucking weird life gets. And it's like, is it because I know that it's weird and that weird things happen, or is it because that's the way this works and weird things happen because it's Mothman?
I don't know. I don't know. I have had some pretty weird experiences since beginning this investigation, but I've had weird experiences my whole life. So
right.
Who's to say if the weird experiences are part of investigating Mothman, or if investigating Mothman is just part of my weird experiences.
Yeah. What came first, the chicken or the Mothman? We'll never
Does
know.
Mothman come from an egg?
Well, I think so. I
I
don't
hope
know.
so.
Ugh,
Because the
I would
idea of
love-
a live birth Mothman is just upsetting.
it only happens to virgin women.
Oh,
Um,
gross.
are we about to talk about the Mothman stick? Because I'm just gonna say that clearly the most accurate depiction of Mothman ever. It's not, but clearly the most accurate depiction ever is the Mothman statue, and he's flat as a board. There's nothing there.
It's a cloaca. He's got a
Cloaca.
cloaca.
Why do you always pronounce it so differently?
I don't know, because I'm from the Midwest and I don't pronounce things right. So it's more fun to say cloaca, even though I know that's not right. But I know it's cloaca, you guys. I know that's how to pronounce it. I just say things a fun way sometimes.
To calico.
Because, yes, thank you. So, but anyway, I think Mothman has a cloaca, and I think that Mothman is hermaphroditic. So if you get two Mothmen together, they will produce a third Mothman through their weird hermaphroditic reproduction.
It's probably through, I don't know, like photosynthesis or something. Just because, why not?
Maybe. I just like, yeah. But anyway, the point is they have cloacas.
I mean, he's got wings. Is he a bird? I don't know.
There's no way to know for sure. Actually, speaking of that statue, is that based on at all on the Frank Frazetta painting? Because they're kind of similar. They are a little bit. Like, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, they're both real muscly.
I'm giggling.
They have insect eyes for some reason.
I'm giggling because I know the answer. Yes, it is. It is directly based off of that image of the Mothman. It
Wow.
is.
All
Yeah.
right. See, my nerd knowledge coming through again.
Yeah, that is
Called
what
it.
it's based on. And you can really tell in the wings
Yeah.
are pretty, I mean, just 100% spot on. Now, if you turn that painting over, though, you don't see the luscious ass. So I'm not sure where that came from.
You would, if Frank Frazetta had painted that Mothman from the rear, he would have had a very muscly, well-toned buttocks.
Yeah, I believe that.
Because that is, men or women, it doesn't matter. They are thick if they are painted by Frank Frazetta. And that's one of the things that I love about his work is, he'll have like all of the women in his paintings, like they're not these like frail wayfish looking women. Like, oh no. They are thick. I mean, it seems more realistic. I don't know. Everything about it is better. I think it's more attractive personally, not to body shame anybody or anything, but just personal opinion. Yeah. So yeah, just guaranteed that if Frank Frazetta had painted Mothman's ass, it would be, boy, what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't want to just say thick again because I said it like 50 times in a row and people are probably getting sick of it. I don't know.
Juicy.
Yeah, juicy butt. Mothman's juicy butt.
But yes, it is a depiction of that, and they did a really good job. So,
Nice.
just putting it out
That makes
there.
me like it better. So.
Yeah, it doesn't look anything like any of the witnesses reported, but except for maybe the legs, because he's got muscular legs for some reason. Like that always seems to be what the witnesses point out. But
It depends. Sometimes I'll get people saying that like he looks really thin.
little chicken legs.
Sometimes, but some of those I'm not completely convinced aren't misidentified birds and stuff.
True.
And birds have weird, obviously skinny legs. So sorry, not to body shame birds. Your legs look great, but they are skinny compared to human legs.
But no, it doesn't look like the witness accounts, but it it's fine. It's still fun. That's what, I'm still happy that it exists. So there's that.
Yeah,
I didn't do anything nearly as exciting as research Mothman, but I watched a movie that I never saw before. I watched
Which
a lot of
movie?
movies. Did you check out that Night Marathon, the last drive-in Night Marathon?
I did. I made it through the first two movies.
Yeah.
And then the third movie came on, and I was just like, I don't like this. And so I turned it off and went to bed. Mostly, I was already tired. And then it's like, I watched When Evil Lurks, which was good, and it's subtitled, which is not a deal breaker for me. But I'm in a specific mood when I'm
Right.
watching like Last Drive-In, and it's not. I want to sit down and pay careful attention to this movie and take it super seriously. And that's what a subtitled movie demands. Usually, like I'll be sitting there. I've got like 2 or 3 role playing game books in front of me that I'll be flipping through. Like maybe I'm planning my next session or something. And so I don't want to have to pay that much attention. And so like When Evil Lurks is so good though that I was like, well, fuck, I'm watching this because this movie is bonkers. Um, and it is. It's really good. It's awful in so many ways. Like just not not in like screenwriting or acting. Like that shit's all great. Awful in the sense that there's some shit in there that you cannot unsee. But I personally enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was great. But then this other movie comes on, and I'm like, man, I just I don't want to have to pay this much attention. 2 subtitled movies in a row, man. Like
Yeah, that
honestly,
was
come on.
tough. That
Yeah,
was tough. But I will tell you, I made it through the first 2 movies also. I wanted to watch the 3rd movie. So I
yeah.
would kind of like sleep and then wake up and it's still on, and kind of watch it a little bit. And I woke up like at a weird fucking spot of that 3rd movie, and I was like, "What is this? I want to watch this." Because it just seemed right up my alley with camp, with all the camp going on, and I kind of caught the end with Joe Bob's commentary on it. And he was kind of describing it as like the Evil Dead, and I was like, I definitely got to check this one out, and I haven't watched it
Sure.
since. But and then of course they did other ones. I definitely need to go back and revisit the rest of the movies, but I didn't stay up for the whole thing. I am, whiny. I don't know. Um, but I get what you mean. When you watch The Last Drive-In, sometimes they have some super serious movies and they could be really good. God, I can't remember the name of the one. It was really good, but god damn, it was heartbreaking. It was about like a little Mexican girl and it was just horrible. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it was a good movie, but it was like, man, this is not what I signed up for tonight.
Oh God, is that the one with does it have like tigers in the title?
Yes. Yeah, I don't
Yeah, that was a
remember.
really good one too. That's another subtitled one. Which again, people are going to listen to this and be like, "Ah, what a fucking philistine," like,
Right.
"Oh, doesn't like subtitled movies." And look, I've got great reading comprehension. It's all like reading and writing has always been my thing. I am currently a writer. I just talked about working on my latest fucking book. But subtitled movies, again, they just require a level of attention and dedication that I am not always prepared for if I just want to sit around and relax on my couch because I'm almost always multitasking, you know?
Oh,
Um,
yeah, definitely,
so
especially
it's,
during Joe Bob night.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Joe Bob, like The Last Drive In is not supposed to be about like paying careful attention to a movie. It's supposed to be about like, having a couple drinks, soft or hard, doesn't matter, whatever you're into, and like getting online maybe and seeing what people are saying about the movie or having some friends over and fucking chatting and hanging out. And, maybe you're making fun of the movie. Maybe you're talking about how cool it is, whatever. But the point is, you're not sitting there like in rapt attention to this fucking movie because it's supposed to be a more fun interactive experience than that. So subtitled movies don't really lend themselves super well to that dynamic, you
Well,
know.
and like when evil lurks, it was a fucking wild ride, but like you kind of have to pay attention to what's going on, or you're not gonna know what's going on.
Yeah, you do.
It was good. It was a good movie, but it was like, man, this is not. I agree. It's just not what I expected. I found the other movie because my God, it is good. Tigers are not afraid. You should absolutely watch that movie. Just
It
be
was really good.
mentally prepared to watch
It's
the
a tough
movie.
watch, yeah.
But anyway, but those aren't the movies I watched this weekend. I watched 28 Days Later. I'd never seen it.
Oh, okay. I have seen that. That's Guy Ritchie, right? He direct that? Who directed
Uh,
that?
I'm gonna pretend that that's correct. Yes. I don't know. I didn't deep dive into it too much because I also wanted to fit the sequel in over the weekend. Because I liked it. I really liked it. Zombie movies are hit or miss. It just they're
Danny
so.
Boyle. Sorry.
Oh, okay,
Go
Danny
ahead.
Boyle. Yeah, they're so normal. It's such a trope now, right? It depends on it. But I really liked the first one. I didn't until about halfway into it. I almost turned it off.
Yeah.
But then it got interesting. And then I watched the sequel, and that wasn't great. So
28 weeks later or whatever.
yeah, 28 weeks later, and I was like,
Yeah.
don't care about this. I was invested in the other characters, which did come out years later. I get why they weren't in it, but I don't know. That's what I did. That was my weekend.
Yeah. I mean, I those movies are okay. I don't like fast zombies. I don't like scientifically explainable zombies. Like if I see a zombie in a movie, I want it to be a rotting corpse most of the time, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Not
And
human. Yeah.
yeah, and like those should be slow because I'm willing to suspend a certain amount of disbelief. But fast corpses, no, that's
What's
that's
your
that's ridiculous.
what's your favorite zombie movie?
Oh boy, you would think that would be really tough, but it's not. It's Return of the Living Dead, hands
Okay.
down.
Yeah, that's a great one. Fucking fantastic. It's got everything you could possibly want in a horror movie.
Yeah, I watch it
But
every year.
mine is always classic Night of the Living Dead. So good. So fucking good. And
That's a good one.
I've never been
Even
affected
the
by a
remake is
zombie.
good.
I haven't seen the remake. Oh my gosh. Didn't fucking Savini direct that one?
Yeah, it's got Tony Todd in it.
Yeah,
Super
I
good.
haven't watched it. I want to check it out because I've heard it's good. But like I've never felt the way that I did in a zombie movie, except like I did in Night of the Living Dead. Like the ending is fucking powerful. That shit is wild.
Yeah, no, it's super good. The reason the remake was made too, I think, um, I want to say it was encouraged by George Romero. Like I think it helped him out um, because of some rights issue or something. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't have a clear picture. But like, I don't think it was one of those like exploitative remakes where they were just capitalizing on the popularity of something. I mean, it was a real labor of love, and it's good. It's a good remake, which
Yeah.
I don't say very fucking often. I hate most remakes.
Yeah, I definitely want
So,
to check that. I want to check that one out. I once I was a horror host for a minute and recorded a whole series of me hosting a bunch of movies, and Night of the Living Dead was one of them.
nice.
And that will probably never see the light of day. And if it does, it will absolutely be behind a paywall because man, that shit was embarrassing. But
Okay,
you
good
know,
to know.
just putting that out there. But no, that was I couldn't wait to talk about it. I was so excited. I'm like, good, it's public domain. I can do this one. So very very neat. But yeah, that's what I did. I watched movies.
Great. Yeah. No, I mean, there's what 6 movies total in that last drive-in marathon, and I watched the first 2 on Friday, and I watched 2 more on Sunday because you can always watch them on Sunday.
Hmm.
When they add them to the streaming service. Um, and yeah, I mean everything was fine. Like Fade to Black is okay. Children of the Corn, God, that movie sucks. But like it
God, that
started a
movie
whole
does suck.
franchise. It's so
God.
boring. Uh, and then, but the last movie, which I've been saving, I'm going to save it for like this weekend, is Galaxy of Terror, which
Oh,
is
I
a
can't wait
Roger
to watch it.
Corman. It's so good. It's a Roger Corman classic. So
I
that'll be a good one. I mean, I feel like the marathon was bookended by really really entertaining drive-in movies.
Yeah.
Like they started out with fucking Slumber Party Massacre, and then end it with Galaxy of Terror, and then everything in between. I'm just like, this is fine. I guess if I could have just watched Joe Bob talk about the movies and not even watched the movies, other than When Evil Lurks, because that movie is fucking ridiculous. That was good. Everybody should watch that. But otherwise, it's like I could have just listened to Joe Bob talk about the movies and saved myself like 4.5 hours.
Yeah, like I want to hear his commentary on Children of the Corn, but like I don't want to watch Children of the Corn again.
It's so shitty.
Yeah, it is. It's just not good. And I was worried. I was gonna say that. I'm glad you said it. I was worried about pissing people off, but
Whatever.
it's just boring.
Have you
I
ever
don't
met
care
a
for it.
Have you ever met a fan of that franchise in real life? Because I haven't.
You know what? You're right.
No, there's no big cornheads out there just screaming into their pillows, punching the wall right now because you talked shit about their favorite movie. Nobody likes that movie. We didn't like it when it came out, but it somehow spawned like several fucking sequels. I don't know how that
They're still
happened.
going to this day. There was just one made like last year. So it was
And it
crazy.
sucked.
I didn't
It was
watch it.
so shitty. I did.
I'm sorry.
I
Sorry for
know.
your loss.
Thank you. Thoughts and prayers are appreciated.
Yeah.
I watch everything. I watch all the horror movies. I don't know why. I think you know what it was. It was during October,
Yeah.
and I every year I do one of those 31-day horror challenges in October because what the hell is it? I can't think of the name of the fucking podcast now, but it's a horror movie podcast. It always does it. I'll think of it later. And I think it was like Nightmare on Film Street or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they do this challenge every year. And so I always do it because it's fun. And I think one of the prompts involved corn or fields or something. And I was like, well, I'll watch the one I haven't seen yet because it was still new. And it was okay. It was faithful to the franchise in that it sucked. So you could say that about it.
So if you really like the movie, it's because they suck. This one's for you.
Well, it's not like I don't love movies that are so bad they're good.
Right.
Like I can name what is probably a shameful number of Scream Queens, but like this wasn't so bad it's good. It's just so boring it's bad. Like it's one thing to be, a bad movie, but the worst thing you can be is boring.
Yeah.
And that's what the Children of the Corn movies are. Like they're just fucking so boring. It just drives me crazy. And so it's not, like you can be bad, you just can't be boring.
Right.
Ideally, don't be both. And that's what the Children of the Corn movies are. They're bad and boring.
Yeah, terrible. But like I said, I want to hear Joe Bob's commentary on it. So sometimes they'll release the episodes with just the commentary, but it doesn't always happen. And I think
I'd see if they do that.
It's with more. Yeah, I'm gonna hit up Twitter and get a petition like just for Children of the Corn. They did it with Cannibal Holocaust because Cannibal Holocaust, it's so extreme, right? People don't want to watch the movie, but they want to hear the commentary, and that's understandable. So on the opposite end of that, you got a movie that's just so fucking bad, nobody wants to watch it. So I guess I could fast forward. I mean, it's fucking 2024. I have a fast forward button.
You could. I mean, yeah. Otherwise, you're stuck watching Linda Hamilton just barely putting up with being in this movie for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's excruciating.
It's really bad.
Like nobody dies. It's got the longest, like most boring chase scene where this guy almost gets caught by these kids like 3 times. And then he'll just suddenly remember that he's an adult and they're little kids and push them all over and run away. Just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. But
it's so crappy.
Anyway, we want to talk about some news?
Yes, I think I need a good palate cleanser after all that Children of the Corn talk.
Oh, I got a palate cleanser for you, for sure. We're going to talk about Jesus.
Oh, my main man, Jesus.
Jesus Christ. That guy.
He seems like a good dude. Yeah.
We're actually going to talk about the Shroud of Turin. Have you heard of the Shroud of Turin?
Have I? No, please. What is it? Tell me in excruciating detail.
For people that maybe people don't know, it is allegedly the cloth that Jesus was buried in, right? He puts it and then escaped 3 days later, however that story goes. A lot of people believe that this is definitely Jesus. Not only that, but you can kind of make out an outline of Jesus himself, right? So this is physical evidence of a biblical story.
of a
to a lot of people.
miracle. Like, he's so powerful. His image was imprinted
Right.
on this cloth because of his resurrection. Like, it's proof not just of him as a historical figure, it's proof of the
The miracle.
power of his resurrection, like the objective reality of divinity.
Yeah. So, a lot of people subscribe to this idea. Well, that's okay. A couple of years back, they kind of did some testing on it, and they were like, well, it can't be Jesus because, sorry, guys, it's only 600 years old. Sorry.
Okay. I mean, I don't know who did that testing. I'm going to guess Satan.
It was clearly it was Satan. it was the Church of Satan.
Yeah, devil's just like, oh yeah, no, this is clearly bullshit. You see him like kicking it under a fucking dumpster or something, just try to shoo it out of the way.
There is no Jesus. But a new study has been done on the shroud. It was conducted by Italy's Institute of Crystallography, I guess is how you say that. And they did a wide angle X ray scattering on the cloth and determined that it is 2,000 years old. And what happened around 2,000
What?
years ago? Well, Jesus happened. That's what happened.
Jesus happened. Sounds like the tagline for a movie.
It was Jesus. But so they then have kind of reinvigorated people with this study. Is that going to remain the same as technology continues to progress and we continue to change the dates of how old things are? Who knows? But of course, then a company took it upon themselves, a tabloid took it upon themselves to take what they had from the shroud and create an AI image of Jesus through the image that's presented on the shroud. And here's the biggest twist of them all, folks. It's not that it's 2,000 years old and it could really be Jesus. It's that it depicted, guess what? A white man.
What?
At least that's what the AI image presents. It's the typical, stereotypical Jesus, right? With long, flowing hair. This one's all fucked up because the shroud's all fucked up, right? He was injured because they killed him. But, it's very much still a white man. And, man, this story just gets messier and messier. And we all know, if we want to go based off of history and, what was kind of around in that area for the time, that doesn't match the science. There weren't really white men in the Middle East. But then again, he was Jesus. Maybe he was the only one. I don't know.
I mean, there would have been Romans and stuff, but the people that Jesus came from would have been pretty heavily tan, I think.
He's Israeli.
Brown. Yeah.
So
In
he
terms
would
of
be,
skin color, yeah, he wouldn't have been like a European looking dude.
he shouldn't have been. No, that would be
But
wrong.
this AI, okay, the idea that this AI is somehow accurately depicting something from the shroud is not true. Like it's fucking AI. So what it's making up a bunch of garbage nonsense. It's probably picking from a bunch of traditional European art that inaccurately depicted Jesus as looking like a white European man, and using that to fill in the gaps for for whatever is left out of the information that it's getting from the shroud. So it's not as though the shroud, I think, represents the silhouette of a white European man, because I've seen the shroud and it doesn't. It would be very difficult to tell ethnicity based on anything from the shroud. I
Right.
think that the data is just corrupted because the images that they were pulling from were probably images that depicted Jesus as white.
So you're telling me, Tobias,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Sure.
You're telling me that a tabloid
Yeah.
that claims to have gotten and curated the image of Jesus
Right.
through AI
Mm-hmm.
might be a little biased, or it might be inaccurate.
I mean, kind of, because what I'm saying is that tabloid is making shit up. They are just straight
A
up.
tabloid? Wow.
Yeah, they're just. I know, right? I didn't think it could happen either, but it turns out I did a little digging, and tabloids just make shit up. They don't care if it's true. So Here
Yeah,
we
they're
are.
they're definitely using this new study to cash in on something else, right? To
Oh
to
yeah.
to do what tabloids do and exploit the situation, and make it something it's not. The 2000 year thing, that is interesting. That's a genuinely interesting. And then they had to go and create this AI image, and like you really can't like find this study without coming across this mention of the AI, and it's like, well, at least they did their. I mean, they did their footwork, man. They're really getting it out there. Um,
Right.
and then a bunch of people are picking it up and they're like, "Oh, look, it's an image of Jesus based off of the shroud itself." And it's like, y'all,
In the
like,
loosest, most inaccurate way possible.
right.
Sure.
Like you were there at the 2000-year-old thing. Like you didn't have to put like that again, that was interesting enough. Like just leave it alone. I don't
Right. Like, especially, okay. I love how AI is total garbage nonsense that we need to get rid of immediately whenever it is creating images that people don't like.
Yeah.
But if it like if it somehow creates an image that I don't know, like appeals to white nationalists or something, then suddenly, oh boy, it is suddenly the most accurate and important technology that we have for finding truth. No, it's as shitty and inaccurate as ever. You know, like, it's just frustrating because it's obvious what's happening here. It's not magic. It's not able to suddenly like look through time and see what the shroud is capturing. It's probably just got a whole database full of white European Jesus that it's drawing on to create this image. So,
Yeah. Nope.
yuck.
It's yeah, no, it's definitely where it's at. But we'll talk about the part that actually is interesting. Do you have any thoughts about the fact that they're saying it is now 2000 years old? Do you have any thoughts about the Shroud of Turin in general?
I've always been interested in the shroud. I was raised Methodist, and we went to church a lot. I was relatively active in church up until like high school. Like that high school rebellious phase. Pretty much did it for me in terms of like regularly attending church. But even despite that, I've always maintained an interest in spirituality, and I've always thought that uh, there are lessons to be had in religious belief systems, and if you kind of listen to the core message behind a lot of Christianity, it's a pretty solid, um, pretty positive message that none of the followers of it pay attention to anymore, seemingly, right? Um, and so, yeah, the idea that there could be physical evidence for something like not just the life of Christ, but um, the actual like sort of miracle behind the resurrection or something. Of course, that's fascinating. Of course, that's super interesting. Um, so yeah, I mean, if the team doing the work is reputable, and their process is sound, and it is verified independently because that's what science needs, right? Then yeah, I would be really interested, to see if that holds up. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I think people should be interested, and I think we should all ignore stupid AI white European Jesus, um, and just pay attention to what's actually important here.
I believe the first real documents of the shroud itself goes back to like the 1300s or something. I don't think there's anything before that, but I mean, let's be real, there wasn't much of anything at all before that in general.
Right, we didn't have a lot of good records, so
So I mean, no matter what, it's old as fuck. Whatever, whatever the case is, whether it be Jesus or not, it is a very old artifact. Well, I don't think we'll ever be able to prove that it was Jesus, right? Or Jesus's Jesus I? What's the possessive term for Jesus? We don't know if it's his shroud or not.
Yeah.
And there's just no way to prove that it was or wasn't. It could have been anybody.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. It would be very difficult. I think you could make maybe a historical case based on context, where it was found and the time that it's dated back to. But yeah, I mean, proving it belonged to one specific person would be difficult. Although I think, again, like the argument gets made that the imprint left on it is evidence of some
It's a
miracle.
miracle,
So
yeah.
unless there was a bunch of dudes that looked just like Jesus committing miracles 2,000 years ago, the Shroud of Turin, it's got to be his, right?
Gotta be his, yeah. It belongs to him.
So,
It's an interesting artifact. It's definitely one of the oldest mysteries that we have, And if you kind of track the history, it's not like it's just now been in modern day that we've questioned its authenticity. People have been questioning it since it's been around. So,
right.
that's cool. That's a neat aspect of it. Whether or not it's 2,000 years old or 600 years old, I don't know. I don't know. They're saying
What would you,
2,000 now, so.
sure. What would you do if it turned out it was actually Jesus' shroud?
I would probably lick it,
That's
like, right on the
not the
inside, touching
response.
the body,
Okay. Gross.
and then I'd go around telling people that I have Jesus in me, and
Okay. Very
just
powerful stuff. Powerful message. A message of hope from Asherz.
I don't know. Even if and I've said this a lot, we don't talk about religion a lot on the show, just because
No, we don't, and we
I don't
shouldn't.
give a
But
fuck about
it's
what
fun
anybody believes in.
sometimes.
But even if it was Jesus, even if Jesus was a real person, and he very much might have been, there's so many other explanations than the Son of God that he could have been, and I wasn't there, and until we invent time travel, which according to John Teeter is really fucking soon, I'm not
Right.
gonna know. So,
That's fair. Can you go back that far? What's the limit for time travel?
I don't think anybody ever asked him. You just can't. I think you
Damn it.
can. I just think you can't go forward. We know that so far, right? So I'm pretty sure you could. I don't know if they do or don't, or if we do or don't. I guess I should say, but
Oh shit, yeah, and it creates an alternate timeline every single time. So would
that's true.
Jesus be the son of God in every timeline? And am
Hmm.
I blaspheming even by speculating about that?
Oh, definitely you are, but
Well, I don't mean to, so nobody come at me.
that's between you and God. So
Right.
it's nobody else's business, and
That
that's
is
where
nobody else's business. Don't you judge me,
So
listeners.
that's where I stand. Right, I'm religion. It's not my business, and it's not your business. It's just not. It's between me and the Shroud of Turin that I'm going to lick one day. That's on my bucket list now.
just waiting to get that call to come bail you out because you've been arrested for trying to lick the Shroud of Turin or something.
They're gonna put me in like big boy prison for that. Like they're gonna put me in like fucking like Guantanamo Bay type prison.
You just get disappeared by the Vatican. Yeah.
Yeah, locked away with all their files. Um, so anyway, that was my news. That's what I got for you.
That's good news. That's solid newsing.
I don't know if it's
Congrats.
good news, but it was interesting.
Sure, fair enough. Okay, well, I've got a news, and this is about some airline pilots who reportedly recorded footage of multiple UFOs on a flight from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. So this comes from the YouTube channel of Captain, I'm going to say Ruud van Pangamanen. We're just going to say Captain from now on. And I apologize if I mangled that, but I do my best. And he posted a video to his YouTube channel that features this footage of several UFOs recorded while he was flying this Boeing 747. So if you're looking for this video, it's embedded in an article that I wrote about this. And the good stuff starts at about 20 minutes, 55 seconds into it, right around there. Because I guess what this guy does is he has this sort of video blog, like he just vlogs on YouTube the life of being an airline pilot, which is probably pretty interesting, I would guess. He's got a decent number of followers. I would imagine it's probably pretty cool to watch that a lot of the time. But anyway, so he's flying in the cockpit with his co-pilot, like I said, somewhere between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, and they see these lights. So there's a series of bright white lights, and they sort of fade in and out of view. At one point, you can see at least two of the lights together. And the captain here, he refers to them as very bright, and talks about how they're sort of moving freely in the sky, because he does talk about them at length, especially at the end of this video. Do yourself a favor and turn on the subtitles and just use the auto translate to English. It works pretty well, honestly, and that's how you'll likely understand, be able to understand most of the video. But anyway, so he really goes at length to talk about how, like, he's not messing around. Like, this wasn't a joke. And I know that sounds exactly like what somebody would say if it was a joke, but there's no reason to believe at this point that this is something that he's just doing for clicks or views or whatever. Because if you watch the lights, they do look weird. They definitely do. And I'm not saying it's impossible for there to be a prosaic explanation. We don't have enough information at this time, but they look weird enough where between them and him saying that they're weird and not really trying to sell a specific narrative, but really just saying, hey, these lights were weird, it makes it seem pretty authentic to me. Because that's really all he does. Like, he does sort of contextualize the lights from within the paradigm of his Islamic faith, which I found interesting, because that then makes me think of, okay, well, how often have sightings like this contributed to or even caused religious belief? Like, we have no way of knowing, but it's an interesting thought experiment. So, I don't know, eat some pot brownies and just think really deeply on it sometime. But other than that, basically all he's doing is going, I don't know what these were. They seemed intelligent. That's the vibe I got. But otherwise, who knows? But he does go out of his way to rule out the common prosaic explanation. So he talks about how he doesn't think it was a star because, one, the stars have a tendency to twinkle, and these were bright and steady, except for when they were fading in and out. So not at all like a star. And they were moving. Stars generally don't move. And then thought about maybe a satellite, but of course they weren't behaving in a way that you would expect out of a satellite. And then what else? He talks about, drones. That's the one. That's the big one now in the 21st century. Is it's always, well, could it be a drone? Well, boy, that'd be really high up for a drone. But beyond that, these objects didn't appear on the ship's radar, and so, or the aircraft's radar, and so that was unusual. And the overall sort of brightness of the light, and again, like the behavior and everything, it just struck him odd. It struck him as odd for something like a drone. So, yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, we're left with a mystery. So, did you get a chance to take a look at this? What did you think of those lights?
I did. When you're talking about somebody like an airline pilot, it's kind of his job to know what the fuck he's looking at in the sky.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of
hope so.
like, next to flying the plane, like that's kind of the whole deal, right? So,
Yeah.
the fact, it's always fascinating, I feel like, when we get these pilots that come forward with this type of stuff, to look at this directly, it's not one thing that we'll get a lot is like daytime sightings, and the easy skeptical explanation for them is always like Mylar balloon, right?
Right.
Well, this is a nighttime sighting. What's the skeptical explanation here? I guess drones, but it doesn't look like drone to me. I've never seen a drone that looks like that. I think people kind of forget uh, the variety of drones we have out there and kind of what they look like at night. And on top of that, there are laws in place to where stuff like this is not it can't interfere with commercial flights or flights in general. You can't just stick shit in the air. Like, it doesn't work that way. So you're talking somebody that's got multiple drones, right? Flying them up into the sky. This would have been, if they're doing it legally, would have been a planned event. If you're talking military drones, well, the military would just put a block off for a commercial flight to even be flying in that area to begin with.
Right.
So none of the typical skeptical explanations really make a lot of sense here. I agree. His response is very diplomatic. It certainly is. It certainly is an unidentified flying object.
if we say only one thing about these objects, let it be that they are unidentified and flying.
And objectical.
And objects.
They're all of those things. But no, really. I mean, I feel like there's too much in place here. But then we are talking about another country. I guess I don't know their laws in regards to aerospace and how that works. But for the most part, I think everybody's kind of on board that, like, you can't just be flying shit around all the time, whatever you want, including drones. Like, there are legal limits to what you can be doing. Now, I can't speak for their government and how they would handle it. But again, I think they'd all be on the same page if they're, like, testing some type of secret drone program. I mean, most government tests and stuff you can find on, like, the flight radar. Like, there's a way to find them and know that they're happening. Usually there's a heads up that they're happening. And this is coming from somebody who lives right next to an Air Force base. So, I think that these are anomalous.
Nobody wants to bring down a commercial flight. Like, no military wants any kind of aerial exercise they're doing, even with drone technology or whatever, to be responsible for bringing down a goddamn commercial flight.
And it's so easy to avoid.
Yes.
Like, it just doesn't make sense to not do that, to not avoid it. I mean,
right. Like, that's just, that's, if you think that's a thing, it's not. Like, that they're just not that sloppy usually. So
usually.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, I mean, shit happens. Like, anything can happen. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying, like, for that to be the go-to excuse, again, it's just a little intellectually lazy. It's just too convenient. So,
and it's not stars. It's not set. Like, you can tell at minimum the video, like, whatever it is happening, like, here, like, within our atmosphere,
right.
It doesn't look like anything in space. It definitely looks like it is in that space that they are occupying, probably a little further away. But yeah, to me, it seems anomalous.
Okay. Agreed.
For whatever that's worth.
Yes. It's worth a lot.
Why, gee, thank you. They are definitely unidentified. For sure.
Right.
Super neat. Wow. Interesting. You guys should go check it out. Go find the video yourself. Watch it. Let us know what you think. Singular40n.com. And then, of course, you can let us know what you think via social media at Wednesdays Talk on Instagram, on X, and on Wednesdays We Talk Weird on Facebook. Whatever your flavor, we're there. So
it's true. Everywhere.
All right. So speaking of children of the corn, let's get into the topic, shall we?
Sure.
Tobias, let me ask you something. Have you ever done a corn maze?
We have a lot of those around here, and we're getting into the time of year where they're going to start popping up. But no, I have never personally gone and done one.
Never. Wow.
No.
That is a little surprising. You should go do one this year.
Maybe I will. I'm super busy, but I'll try to fit it in somehow.
Just walking through some corn for a couple hours, getting lost. It's great. It's a
Cool.
great time. You look to the left, there's corn. You look to the right, there's corn. It's pretty fantastic. But maybe this will tempt you to go. What if I told you that corn mazes, okay, are created by non-earthly beings set out to make the Earth a part of their super galactic highway?
Uh-huh.
Would that make you more interested in going to corn mazes?
What if you told me that? I think that if you told me that, I would not believe you.
I think that's a smart move. No, I'm not going to pretend that corn mazes are really a part of this, but they kind of can be in a way. We're going to be talking about crop circles. This is
Yay!
this is like a fucking class. I just opened the bag of classics and pulled one out, and it was crop circles.
We got a real 90s theme going this year, a little bit,
We do.
like with the alien autopsy video. Yeah.
We
Crop
do.
circles. Like those are 90s hits.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Going for the '90s grab bag this time. Crop circles are a really old phenomenon. It's not something we really talk about a lot anymore, and we'll kind of probably get into why, I'm sure. But before I do, Tobias, what's your history with crop circles? You ever made one?
No, I've never made one. I don't even own a flying saucer. How could I
Wow.
make a crop circle?
Wow.
But I know. I'm very underprivileged. No. I same as everybody who was a kid in the 90s,
Yeah.
like I grew up with crop circles thinking that they were this crazy phenomenon that represented some kind of otherworldly communication, it turned out in some cases that may not be true, but boy, like we really thought it might be 30 years ago.
We really thought those were something. And of course, I took the social media. I asked you guys what you thought. The consensus on it was pretty overwhelming. We had some people with some stray opinions about them being some type of extraterrestrial happening. But for the most part, people were pretty content to accept that these are man-made, that they're hoaxes. I know.
Man made by men from space.
By men from Yep. Spacemen, if you will.
Yes, man made by spacemen, maybe.
Spaceman made. But they have a history in ufology, right? And we definitely can't ignore that they have been around for a while, and they'll probably continue to persist long after you and I are both dead and part of the crops themselves. So
Yeah.
let's kind of get into
Wait a minute. And part of the crops are you going to murder me and bury me in a cornfield?
Well, I was more thinking of like, so a lot of the crops they talk about how they're like they're not just bent down, but they're like melted together. So I was actually gonna kind of melt you like into the
Oh.
crops.
Oh,
Yeah.
gross. Okay.
Melt you down like a crayon and like spread you out over like, and then like you kind of fuse to it eventually.
I'm glad I won't be alive to smell that
You become
because that sounds disgusting.
But I mean, what else are you gonna do? I mean, are you gonna do cremation? Are you gonna get cremated? Or are you gonna get buried? Do you know? Have
Oh,
you
I have no
discussed
idea.
this? I mean, if you're already gonna get cremated, like we'll just do it and throw you in a fucking crop circle.
Just get melted into a paste.
You're
You
not using your
wuss.
body anymore. It's fine.
True.
And then you'll be a part of history. Everybody will talk about it. They'll be like, and 40 investigator Tobias Whalen was found amongst the crop circle.
It
You'll go down in history.
was spread evenly across the crop circle like butter over too much bread.
I'm gonna wrap you, you and all of your smeared bits. I'm gonna wrap you in a shroud, and then in 2,000 years, another podcast will come along and talk about your very shroud.
The Shroud of Tobias.
The shroud of Tobias. Yep,
Perfect.
that's the plan.
Right.
But we'll get into kind of the history and kind of where these came from. I'm not going to go all the way back just yet, but I do want to go back to 1966 and the town of, I think it's Tully in
Yeah.
Queensland, Australia.
That's important.
this is a really fun story, actually. Whether or not it's true, the whole thing's super interesting. So banana farmer George Pedley, which is fucking an awesome job. Can you imagine just farming bananas? I guess I hear it's really hard, but it
I mean,
sounds cool.
if I have to live in Australia to do it, look, no offense, Australia, but I don't think I want to live there. I mean, I don't even want to think about the size of whatever spiders they have in their fucking banana fields. I bet they're as big as dinner plates. It just seems like a terrifying dystopia of weird monsters.
I've
real
got to
life.
say this. I didn't realize bananas were grown in Australia.
Well, I mean,
I guess I don't know why I didn't. I mean, I don't know. I never really thought about where bananas are grown.
well, I don't think they're native there necessarily, but I think they're probably a crop that can be grown there.
Well, that makes sense. I hear bananas are hard to grow. Anyway, enough about bananas. Oh my god, we're always talking
Welcome
about
to our
bananas.
weekly banana podcast.
Always talking
Banana
about
Talk with Tobias and Asherz.
Banana hour. It's an hour long every week. George Pedley, he's out there. He's doing his banana work, doing whatever, and he's kind of chugging along on his tractor, alongside this lagoon there on the property, and he hears a loud, ear-piercing whistle that kind of sounds like it's coming from the engine area. And so he, stops the tractor. He gets off of it. He's going to check it out, thinking, "Hey, maybe I popped a tire. Who knows what this noise is?" And as he's doing that, a flying saucer rises from the lagoon that's right in front of him. Big old disc-shaped flying saucer rises there and scares the shit out of him. As a matter of fact, he said, "My body was frigid with fright." Very, very terrifying. He says the saucer just took off. It disappeared in a puff of blue vapor. But it left behind a 9-meter nest in the reeds of the lagoon. The reeds were all melted together with pieces of Tobias Whalen and continued.
I was aboard that saucer.
You were there. Yeah. That was the whole mission, was to dump you off there. But the reeds themselves continued to sway in a clockwise motion as they kind of laid there amongst themselves, indicating, of course, some type of movement. And he was left with a UFO nest, is what this is continuously referred to. Now, is this a crop circle or is this just a landing spot?
Isn't that what all crop circles are?
I don't think so. Maybe.
No, that's true. Some of them have weird designs and stuff.
Right. So this kind of goes on to be, I think it's the clockwise motion of the reeds that were laid down that kind of, I don't know, made him kind of think, or made other people maybe speculate that this circle was formed on purpose. But again, if you set something down on a busy area, it's going to have an indent. So to me, it just seems like the craft itself just, radiated the shit out of the reeds.
That's kind of a stretch, saying that this was some deliberate, construction of a saucer nest or circle, because you're right. Now, indentations in the ground and similar left by saucers is nothing new at this point.
Yeah.
What this is the first example of is, or at least the first known example of, is what would later come to be known as a crop circle, based entirely on its interaction with those reeds, right, and how they kind of all just laid down facing like one direction.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. If you conceive of crop circles as a deliberate form of communication, as a lot of people have sort of bought into at this point, then I don't think this is that.
Right. This doesn't really fit there. But you know what? There's nowhere else that I think we would possibly talk about this, and it is a neat story. I do like it.
Oh, no, people point to it as like the first crop circle. It's relevant. We have to talk about it.
Yeah, they do. People talk about it, and it just seems weird. To me, if there was a saucer and it was just hovering there in that area, and it was, to hover, it has to maintain this circular motion. I mean, then, like, yes, they're all going to be facing the same direction. Like, that makes sense.
Right.
And they're probably going to be melted because of who knows what the fuck exhaust that UFO's got on it,
Alien energies. It's fine. Like, you can just say energy and you don't have to say anything else in this field.
You're right.
And people aren't allowed to ask you to clarify or explain any further. You just
That's
go, no, it's energy.
That's a good point. Of course, people are skeptical about this event in general. They think that George, while George himself was not deliberately hoaxing, could have mistaken what he experienced for basically a tornado, pretty much. I mean, they call it a willy willy, I guess, and that
Willy Willy is
a
gotta
willy
be
willy
my favorite term
for
for
tornado.
any kind of weather event that I've ever heard in my fucking life, because you can't take that seriously. Like, if somebody was just like, oh, look out, take cover, it's a willy willy, I'd be like, what?
Willy willy.
That's adorable. I'm going to go look at it.
Look at this willy willy on the screen.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's just some type of cyclone, right? It doesn't matter. It's wind going in a circular motion. That's what it is. It's a willy willy. And some people think that George simply experienced this. It's not unusual for the area for things to happen, especially that time of year. They think that maybe not the crops, but the reeds at this point, there's no crops, were damaged because of the willy willy. And And maybe what we had mistaken for a flying saucer was actually debris from it.
Right. So they just think he's a moron.
Which let's talk about. You're telling me that this was a tornado that was significant enough to have so much debris that it looks like a UFO and damaged and melted the reeds of the lagoon, but he didn't fucking see it initially, and he didn't feel it, and he didn't. I mean, what?
Right. He just thought it was something else because he's a giant idiot, according to those people.
Because he's just a banana farmer. He doesn't know anything except for bananas.
Oh, man. This is going to get me all riled up like Kelly Hopkinsville. This is classism at work in the paranormal. I don't like it. Just because he's a banana farmer doesn't mean he's stupid.
Especially because he's a banana farmer. What the fuck, you guys? Like, what? Okay, whatever. Skeptics, if whatever. Anyway, I think this was a legitimate UFO sighting at minimum. That's what I think about this particular thing. Now, what the fuck does this have to do with crop circles? Well, like Tobias said, for some reason, people think it does. I don't think it does. I think this is its own fucking thing. It's just a UFO sighting.
Sure. But people, it was a very popular sighting, and it got a lot of attention. And so this totally Australia UFO sighting, like, it was covered in papers worldwide. Like, people knew about this, and it was only after this event, and again, like, that saucer nest, that was a big part of it. So people were familiar with that aspect of the story, and it was only after this event that we began to see crop circles appear in fields, at least in an extremely widespread sort of way that got a lot of media attention. And so a lot of people look at this sighting as the first crop circle, not just because of the saucer nest that was reported as being part of it, but for what it may have caused, represented, or inspired by the people who saw this story. Because not to get too far ahead, but there are some people who have come forward claiming to have made crop circles who say that they were inspired directly by the saucer nest in the Tully UFO sighting.
Yeah. Would you say that after the Tully UFO sighting that these things were cropping up everywhere?
I would say that because I am hilarious. So
touche. So this, again, like Tobias said, this then kind of kicked this off, right? It became very popular. And then you also had crop circles that started just kind of a boom of this weird phenomena happening all over the world, really. And it inspired a man by the name of Colin Andrews, who went on to create an entire study. You can't see my air quotes, but they're there, on crop circles. As a matter of fact, he's the man that coined the term crop circles. Very creative. But he got even more creative and dubbed this study, I think I'm saying it right, seriology?
Yeah, well, cerealogy, because
Seriology. Close.
cereal,
Okay.
because of the crops that are grown. It's usually in like oh gosh, like taller crops. So like you think wheat or similar, so like the cereal crops basically.
Have you read
Like breakfast cereal.
have you read any works from Colin Andrews?
No, not like a book, no.
Yeah, I haven't either. He's got a bunch of them, but truth be told, I've never read about him, or read, on them. But he's like the guy in all this. Really, I mean, again, he starts writing all these books about him. He's really talking about him, and he's like, look, there's a whole science now. I made it, and
Right.
he's really trying to get this off the ground, and he does it. He does a good job, and it does. Seriology never really took off. I don't ever hear anybody talk about being a seriologist in this day and age. I've never met one.
Not
Maybe
anymore.
maybe you're out there. But again, there's good reason for that. So as Andrews is kind of digging into this, he's kind of discovered things that predate the Tully incident, or may predate the Tully incident, Tully UFO sighting, for the circles. And it appears one of the oldest encounters, or one of the oldest instances that people who are really into serology talk about, is in 1678, when a woodcut pamphlet titled "The Mowing Devil" appeared. And this is it's pretty silly. The pamphlet is a story about a cheap farmer who refused to pay his laborers. Okay, didn't want to pay him a living wage, and as a matter of fact, stated that he would rather the devil do it himself than come off of being so damn cheap. That part checks out. I believe that
Yeah,
part.
fuck yeah. I wish the devil would come mow my lawn. I got to do it tomorrow. I'm not looking forward to it.
Well, all you got to do is proclaim that, because, and so now tomorrow the devil's going to come mow it, because that's exactly what the fuck happened in the story. Apparently the devil came and did the deed. It's a little more involved than that. The farmer's land ended up, one evening it caught fire, burned up the whole thing, but then by morning the fire was gone, and all the oats had been put away correctly or whatever. And the farmer's like, yeah, no man could have done that. It was definitely the devil. Allegedly.
I'm not used to the devil being so nice to people. Doesn't that
Right,
seem like weirdly polite for the devil?
Like, what did this guy gain? Like, he didn't lose anything. Like, so what?
Right.
The devil, I think, is not as bad as people say he is. But that's just me. Like, all the stories I hear about the guy, like, he punishes all the bad people in the world. Well, fuck, man. That's not terrible. Someone's got to do it.
Somebody does have to do it. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun little story, I guess. And there are a lot of those out there. And you probably were leading up to this anyway, but there are older stories than this about mysterious circles showing up in the ground, or pressing down on plant life or something. Fairy circles, elf circles, they definitely predate this pamphlet, although I understand the argument that this is one of the earliest, or the earliest found I guess example of something that seems to mirror the crop circle phenomenon as closely as this does. Although I would make the argument, if you look up now, when you think of fairy circles, I think most people think of like rings of mushrooms and things. But there are,
Yeah.
like there are fairy and elf circles that, like if you read the Celtic, I'm sorry, the fairy faith in Celtic countries, which is one of our best and oldest collections of Irish fairy stories. There is something called elf circles talked about, where it is like sections of grass or people's fields that are circular and look to have been pressed down, and they of course explained that by saying that there were elves out there, dancing at night, right? And that's what pressed it down. So there's other precedent within folklore for something like crop circles, right?
Yeah, this old account from the 1600s, it still doesn't. I still have. I struggle to find the correlation between it and crop circles because, as the story goes, it it wasn't like there weren't weird designs in the field. Like it was all taken care of. Like so, I don't know what it is. I think it's because on the woodcut pamphlet itself, the image of it showed like an image of like the devil mowing in a circular
In a
motion.
circle. Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's a
I mean,
stretch for
probably.
me, you know.
Sure.
But
Well,
you are
also
right.
because, this is okay. Most crop circles aren't about, a flying saucer coming down and harvesting somebody's crops and neatly putting them away either. Like that's a pretty big departure from the standard crop circle narrative of crops being pressed down in a weird direction.
Yeah.
So that also, you're right. Like it doesn't, once on the surface maybe, but once you kind of dig into it a little bit, it doesn't really seem to be consistent with what we would conceive of as crop circles today.
Yeah. I mean, unless some of it's misinterpreted. And on top of all that, nobody's even saying that this is like a true story. I mean, they kind of are, but it seemed more like a PSA for why you should, well, I guess not pay your workers a living wage. I mean, because again, this guy only gained everything, but it's the devil, so it's scary. So maybe you should pay him good and stop treating him like shit. So I guess it could swing either way. It doesn't necessarily seem like a true story. Again, there's no. I don't think the farmer is even named. Like we don't even know who he is, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Anyway, again, for me, this seems like a reach, but this is something that seriologist, I guess, is I'm gonna go with is what they cling to, as this is proof that this has been around for a long time. Tobias, I think your examples are better, and I don't know why they're not really pushing those as hard.
Oh, good question. I don't know, because they're fairy stories. I mean,
That too,
I,
yeah.
well, I mean, because there could be some remaining stigma. Although I guess, now that I think about it, I mean, thanks to people like Jacques Vallée, I don't know that comparing fairy lore to modern UFO lore has much of a stigma left, really. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
it does, but I don't think it does. So, yeah, I don't know, because that does seem like the obvious example there. Like we have this pre-existing set of stories about weird circles of bent plants being found by people. Um, so yeah, why not talk about that more than this mowing devil? I have no idea. Maybe because the mowing devil has a pamphlet. I don't know. I really
Just
don't.
got a picture, yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody likes pictures, so there's that. That's the only
I don't
downfall
take
of the
anything.
podcast.
What's that?
That's the only downfall of this podcast. You guys can't see what we're talking about.
It's true. I was just
Mhm.
going to say, I don't take anything seriously unless it's in a pamphlet.
Has to be in a pamphlet. That's how you
Yes.
know it's the real deal.
Right. All of my
Um,
information comes from pamphlets.
and again, what was the lesson there? It's not very clear. Don't get the message, but thanks for
Something
trying.
something bad must have happened to this guy.
It
I'm
had
guessing.
to
He
have,
lost
right?
a soul or something. I don't know.
Something. I mean, what the? The devil doesn't just do that stuff, or unless he does, and you're all just lying about the devil. I don't know. I believe in that conspiracy more than crop circles, if I'm going to be honest with you. But we'll get there.
Okay.
So the term crop circles and circles in general is not, it doesn't mean that it has to be in a circle. As a matter of fact, crop circles tend to be pretty intricate, of many different shapes and sizes. Some of the more popular ones that, we can kind of talk about. There was one that was reported by, well, guess what? Another pilot in 1996. The pilot had flown over Stonehenge, or roughly around that general area, and didn't notice anything odd. Well, about an hour later, he flew back over again, and he saw a Julia set mowed into, or not mowed, but in the crops of that area. A Julia set is, it doesn't matter what it is. It's a fractal. It's a math thing. Um, it doesn't seem to be significant at all, or again, doesn't seem to be significant to extraterrestrial life. But you can look up what a Julia set looks like and see what was carved into the crops there. If you're curious. Now, of course, this isn't particularly unusual for Stonehenge or crop circles. They tend to kind of have a relationship. I think they're dating. I don't know.
They're not. They don't want to put a label on it.
Oh, well, I understand. It's 2024. You don't have to anymore, right?
Right.
So I get it. But they tend to be, a lot of these crop circles tend to pop up around these types of places like Stonehenge, where there's a lot of mystery surrounding it, right? It wasn't men that built it, it had to have been aliens. That is kind of a part of the crop circle lore, or seems to be. So they're not necessarily just kind of sprinkled all over the place. They do tend to seem like they're next to these monuments.
They are. They are. Okay, for instance, people who fly over very remote areas never report crop circles.
Yes.
They're always in areas that are either nearby some significant place that people have ready access to, or within fields that, again, are in areas that people can access easily. So I would assume that, of course, something like Stonehenge is going to be a more popular landmark for something like this to be, for something like this to appear next to. And, if that is because people are doing it deliberately, that makes sense. If it's because it's aliens, well, we already had a bunch of weird lore surrounding Stonehenge, so that makes sense too.
Yeah. And 1996 is a significant date to kind of keep in mind regarding this situation. Now, somebody did later come forward and say that the pilot was mistaken. They actually know who made the imagery, and says that it didn't crop up in an hour. It had been there all night. So he was simply just mistaken. Maybe he didn't see it the first time around, which is possible, I guess. I mean, you should have your eyes on the road, right? And the road is the sky. So irresponsible. Second time around, pilot, looking down.
Yeah.
Like that.
Skies are roads, dummy.
Right, dumb. God, think you can fly a plane? You're so cool. You are, but still. So I don't know. Again, this person that comes forward, the person that actually made it, never came forward and said, "Yeah, it was me."
Sure.
But somebody who knew that person did. So who knows? Now, crop circles kind of they lost a lot of their luster in 1991. And this was really the turning point in people's belief in them, even within the French communities, when we had a gentleman by the name of Doug Bauer and another gentleman by the name of Dave, I think it's Corley. I think that's how you say it. Doug and Dave. 2 D's. Double D.
Boo, Doug and Dave, boo.
Boo, fuck them. When they came forward and admitted to hoaxing a crap ton of crop circles, like 200 crop circles between the years of 1978 and, probably all the way up until 1991, to be honest. I think they did put a year on there, but let's be honest, it probably lasted for a while. Now, these crop circles that they had admitted to hoaxing were primarily happening in England, which was a hotspot for these types of things. They even they even took a reporter. They took a tabloid, and the tabloid said, "Okay, do it, show us," and they did. So they created a crop circle using their pulley system method with a plank, with a board, and some rope, and something to keep track of their parameters and where they were. And they successfully made a crop circle. But it didn't stop there. Hilariously enough, the journalist for the tabloid went ahead and had it examined before they posted anything by serologist Pat Delgado, who verified that this was authentic. This could not have been a hoax.
Said it was made by a non-human higher intelligence, in all likelihood.
Where do you think Pat Delgado is these days?
Oh, poor
Probably
poor
in
Pat.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Which of course then the tabloid reveals, well, these guys made it, and we know they did because we watched them do it. Super embarrassing for the guy. I do feel bad for him. That would be really embarrassing.
I don't, and here's why. Because if you make strong declarative fucking statements like that
You're right.
about shit that you don't know and you get called out, that's your fault. What he should have said is, I don't know. Nobody knows. And then the tabloid would have been like, oh, well, this is going to be way less exciting, but those guys did it. And then he should have been like, oh, cool. Okay, well, thanks. And that would have been it.
Don't fucking talk to tabloids.
Oh, there's that too.
First of all, yeah. But no, absolutely, you're right. He definitely he made a conviction, and he was convicted on that conviction because he was wrong. Again, so embarrassing. But then the right thing to do would be to come forward and be like, "Well, fuck, I fucked up. I made a mistake. That's the way it is.
Yep.
It happens." I don't know if he did that. I didn't dig into this guy. I don't know who he is. I've never heard of him before. But I found that really interesting, and I found that an interesting testament to the community as a whole, because we definitely see that a lot. We see a lot of people doubling down on these strong opinions about things in the paranormal, and that just isn't. That's just silly. It's just silly. Then it kind of leads into Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan talked about crop circles, and very much was not a supporter of them, said that they're man-made, and ufologists tend to use them because they hang on to the belief that extraterrestrial life is real and is visiting us, and this is just a terrible this is a terrible way to do that. This is not good evidence, folks. It's not good evidence. So again, you had these two guys who admitted that they did a lot of these crop circles, but they didn't do them all. And that's kind of where things get a little strange for people that want to die on the crop circle hill. Now, Tobias, maybe you had better insight into this than I did, but I found different claims about crop circles, two big ones. One of them being, we'll start with this one, that the areas that crop circles are made, the crops tend to have a high level of radiation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see any proof of that. I didn't see any readings that people have taken.
Hold on. If you're going to start asking for proof, then what are we even doing here? Okay.
Well, that's a good point. I don't know. I don't know if you came across anybody that did any type, even remotely close to dedicated. I mean, because all it takes is a Geiger counter and then the fucking, you know what I mean? Report it, like write it down. I didn't even see that much. So where are these radiated crops? Like, when did that happen? Where did that happen? I couldn't find a specific instance, just general blanket statements, saying that that's the case.
Right. Well, that's probably because I don't know if those findings are even readily available. There's only a couple of sources. So, first and foremost, you've got biophysicist Dr. William C. Levengood. So he began to study crop circles and the crops like within them uh, over 30 years ago, like early 90s, right? And over the course of the decade, after taking thousands of samples of stalks within these crop circle formations, he said that he had discovered the lengthening of the apical nodes. So the node of a plant is just below like the seed head, right? And so he said that this lengthening was the result of some kind of electromagnetic or microwave energy exposure. And that then this exposure caused the stalks to bend at various angles, sometimes as much as 90 degrees. So going back to Doug and Dave, like those hoaxers, when they were using that board to press crops down. Often it would just bend them. You know, like sometimes it'll break them, but if depending on the condition of the crops, like sometimes they would bend. But anyway, so this quote unquote expulsion of the node, uh, according to Levengood, then would sometimes affect only a single row of cells within the stalk, which he said was impossible to replicate with modern technology. That is a claim that gets made all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, when it comes to Dr. Levengood's findings, we have a single source and a single sample size.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, these results have never been replicated. And I will say this, I don't know if that's because nobody has tried or because people have tried and had different findings, but I lean more towards the former there. I think that just nobody has bothered. So, you know, that kind of is what it is, right? Now, when it comes to the actual quote unquote like radiation, like those claims, do you remember who was making those specifically?
Um, so just different publications that I
Okay.
came across. So they weren't like, well, here's a quote from, Stephen Teresa. I don't know, I just made up a name.
What?
It
No,
was
people are going to
nothing.
be like all confused,
They were like
thinking
Stephen
like,
Teresa.
oh, okay. So,
Stephen
um,
Teresa's listening to the show right now. He's like, I never fucking said anything like that.
okay. So, yeah, I know, right? We're absolutely going to get a cease and desist letter for defamation or something.
From Stephen. Yeah.
Okay, well, there is a guy named Jeffrey Wilson. And so Jeffrey Wilson founded the Independent Crop Circle Researchers
Oh
Association.
my God.
And yeah, I mean, he's done a lot of work. He's a former science teacher. And he is the one, as far as I am aware, who is the most insistent within the field that there are higher radiation levels when it comes to these plants. Now, how much of that has been influenced by the work of Dr. Levengood, I have no idea. But he's one who's been very, very insistent on that, on the truth of that statement. So, but again, you know, I don't know that anybody has been out there replicating any of these findings, because I certainly haven't seen it if they have. So it's not, if you care about such things, it's not very good science to just do one study yourself and then declare a thing as existing. It needs to be replicated and independently verified by other scientists.
Yeah.
So
The Levengood study was going to be my second thing, because even though yes, there's his, there, like you said, there's just nothing else to back it up, and it is
right.
just a small. We've seen this time and time and again, where we have a very small pool of things. John Keel's Wednesday phenomena that comes to mind, right? Where we later find out that it's just not correct.
Right. People still get mad at me for talking about that as though I am somehow like just blaspheming like the name of John Keel by being like, yeah, he said a lot of shit that wasn't true. Sometimes he would just say stuff. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, right. Well, and it doesn't mean that it wasn't true for him at the time. It just means that it just wasn't you can't replicate that.
He
So
could have
therefore
been
it's
just
not good.
straight wrong. Yeah,
He
he
could.
could have just
Right. I
got it
mean,
wrong.
right, it just happens, and that could be what's happened in the Levengood study. We don't know. The radiation thing though, that's so any citizen scientist can test that. You don't have to be a fucking scientist to test that out and show results. Like, and I haven't found anybody that has. So disappointing. I'll fucking do it.
I
Aliens,
know, right?
bring your crop circle. I'm in Ohio. There's plenty of places that you can set up shop, right? I'll come out
I
and fucking test it.
I own a Geiger counter.
Me too.
Anytime, any fucking time, I am happy to come out and test the radiation levels at any fucking place that anybody has ever said anything otherworldly has happened.
Yeah.
Just let me know. I will be there.
I mean, it's just part of your basic, it should be part of your basic equipment. Like, really? I
Yes.
mean, what anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that you also didn't come across anything that was going to change my opinion on that. It just seems very odd that nobody has conducted that, but fuck it, we'll start again. If there's crop circles around us, fucking going out there, I'm testing it. So again, an unsubstantiated claim, but people really cling to this. Like, they really cling to the Levengood study. They really cling to the radiation. And if those things are accurate, then yes, this does paint a different picture. However, we have easily proven that this can be very easily hoaxed. And sometimes it's not even an active hoax that this happens in. We're going to talk about one instance that cropped up in Tasmania in 2009. There was an opium field there that ended up having these strange circles all around it. And of course, it's aliens. It couldn't be anything else. But it wasn't. It turns out that it was wallabies that loved the
What?
shit out of doing some opium. And so they'd get into the opium field and they'd fucking bounce around, and they're not necessarily breaking the crops. They've got the same
Oh,
bend,
yeah.
and they're just getting high as shit, bouncing around the fucking opium fields.
Those wallabies.
They love
Little
getting
rascals.
high. They got a problem, they
They
need to
do.
get help.
They need help. They do need help. Yeah. It's a very serious issue in the wallaby community.
It really is. In the Tully incident, we had the explanation of some type of tornado, or I mean, that also could be a very real possibility. These short spin ups that happen, they don't necessarily rip up the crops from the ground, but they definitely damage them. Crops aren't hard to bend without breaking. I was a Midwestern teenager. We were very bored. All you have to do is push it down, and it
That
is
would
pretty.
never work.
It's usually it's actually it's pretty fucking tough to break a stalk of corn. I mean, if you guys have ever tried, it's hard. You gotta pull out your pocket knife and fucking cut through that shit, and then by the time you're halfway there, it's not even worth it anymore, and you move on to something else.
I mean, that's how I know you really did grow up in the Midwest, because that is so dumb, but is also exactly the kind of thing that we do in the Midwest, because it is
Yep.
so boring so often.
Yep, that's true. I mean, again, it's not like these are difficult to make. I in the beginning of this, I brought up the corn maze. It is now like a big advertising scheme to create designs in crops for various reasons. Sometimes it's just to create, a cool image for, again, advertising. Companies pay for it. People do it in the fall for corn mazes all the time. We have one here. They always do a super intricate corn maze, and while it is like really interesting, and I imagine that probably takes a lot of fucking work. You're making a drawing basically that you can't see. It is really cool, but it's not impossible for humans to do. Like, you can make anything in the corn and the wheat and the oats and the opium, if you want to.
Oh, for sure. Well, and although I will say this, a lot of these crop circles are being formed in fields where the farmers would rather that they were not. So even going back to like Doug and Dave, and they inspired a lot of people. So by no means should anybody think that two guys are responsible for every crop circle. Every like the entirety of hoaxed crop circles were done by a bunch of different people and they made clubs and stuff. So we're talking about like dozens of individuals who are inspired by either Tully or Doug and Dave, who I think were inspired by Tully, um, to create these crop circles, and they do it as a sort of like performance art kind of thing. But they also do it often illegally
Yeah.
and to people that would rather they didn't because it damages their fucking crops, and that's how they make a living. So I
Yep.
just think it's worth noting that it's not all fun and games. Even if it is just entirely hoaxes, stay out of farmers' fields. They work hard. Don't wreck their shit. You're not funny. Like just
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah, don't be a boring Midwestern teenager. It's not cool. There actually have been people that have been prosecuted, not necessarily prosecuted, but definitely sued for doing this to farmers.
Good.
So I didn't pull up their names. I guess I didn't think we would touch on it too much. But it's certainly like a
That's fine.
modern, not necessarily a modern day, but like a different version of graffiti.
Yeah.
It's very much art, an art thing, an underground cabal of criminal artists that go and push corn down.
Yeah. I mean, basically.
And it's not like it's impossible for them to plan ahead of time what this design should look like and then do their process. And I know what people are saying, well, it takes a long time to make stuff like that. It does. It does. But here's the thing is that, as much as farmers do work and they are constantly on their farm, it doesn't mean that they're smack dab in the middle of their field all the time. Like you certainly could get away with putting in a couple days of work, putting a design in a field without being noticed.
I mean, honestly, most of these you could do pretty reasonably with a couple of people in a few hours.
Right.
So they appear overnight. No farmer. Well, depending on the time of year. Like, yes, if it's harvest time, you might see some farmers out there at night. But generally speaking, when these crop circles are being made, is when nobody is in these fields at night. You go out there, you work in the field for a few hours. You've got a couple people with you. It goes way faster than people think because you're literally just stepping on a damn board. So you're doing it as fast as you can walk. Think about how far you could walk in 3-4 hours.
Yeah,
You
that's
could
right.
cover a lot of ground. You could make some pretty big crop circles.
Yeah. Yep. And so, I mean, again, it's certainly not impossible. There have been people who have done a little more homework on it and have kind of noticed that, there tends to be a correlation in these crop circle formations, that they tend to happen a lot more immediately after a media report. So after some type of media coverage of one that popped up somewhere, then you get five
Weird.
more in its place. And then, of course, on properties that are, well, like we mentioned earlier, near, kind of near monuments of some sort, some historically significant place. And also properties that tend to lack fencing or areas that really don't have a lot of anti-trespassing laws.
A lot of people don't know this, but aliens sticklers for trespassing laws. Yeah, it's true. Like if you are sick of being abducted, you just got to move someplace with better trespassing laws and the aliens will be afraid to come on your property.
You got to put a little no trespassing sign up,
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh, fuck, I can't go there. That's
Yeah, no, they'll just go to your neighbor's house.
we can't trespass. That's right. They stay away from those events. They don't want any legal problems. All right. They're just trying to find their way home or whatever. But of course, let's talk about what the believers do believe that these things tend to be. There have been, of course, the most popular is it's aliens. Why is it aliens? Why are aliens doing this? Why do they do anything that they do? We don't have to answer for them. We're not them.
It's true
Um,
because people talk about it. like as being this weird form of communication, and it's not a very effective one because it
Oh.
takes a lot of interpretation and they don't really make all that much sense. But is it any weirder than like somebody being abducted by a UFO and then having like Space Jesus give them a fucking 6-hour lecture on how we need to disarm all the nukes or whatever? Like, it's not exactly the weirdest form of communication we've seen in ufology. So,
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, people are just kind of happy with that. Maybe it's, a type of roadmap for them. Maybe they're trying to communicate to somebody else. Maybe they're trying to communicate to us. And they're like, man, they really love corn. We're going to write a message in their corn. They've got
but
all
not our
these
corn.
they've got all these fancy devices that are literally waiting for us to send a message to, but let's fucking write them a message in the corn. What should we write in the corn? How about a mathematical fractal? Sounds great. They like
I
math.
mean, yeah, totally. No, like the reality is you could show people that and they'd just be like, I don't know what that is. And then they'll
Right.
just go on with their day.
It looks alien to a lot of people, and it's like the symbols and shit that are popping up are like man-made symbols, like that we made.
Right.
So it's like, okay, whatever. All right, but never like a message, like a language or anything. They're never like hello, or anything. And whatever, okay. But again, I'm trying to not be an asshole. Some people really believe in this, and that's fine. But that's what they believe. Most of the time, it's aliens. What are the other explanations? Oh, people have said that it's paranormal, in the sense of like ghosts, right? It's for some reason ghosts making these messages, or like we saw in the Mowing Devil, it's Satan himself.
Maybe.
You know,
What about the Earth trying to give us a message? Is that on there?
Jesus, probably. Sure, why not? Let's go with that. It's the Earth
Because
telling
that's the
us.
second most popular paranormal explanation, just behind extraterrestrials that I've seen. Is that it's like Mother Gaia or something
Oh
trying to
yeah.
communicate.
Yeah. I did see that. It is right. Yes, it's the Earth trying to say something. What is the Earth trying to say? Eat it,
I don't know.
Denny's. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
nobody has any idea. I wish that crop circles were giving us like preachy messages about nuclear disarmament or whatever, like old contactee cases, because at least those were straightforward. Like you knew what the fucking message was. Like you
yeah,
got the point of it. But this is just like they love math. I don't. What are we supposed to do with this information?
right. They're crazy about math. They love
Right.
it. The Earth loves it.
Earth loves math. It's like, okay, thanks, Earth. We get it. You love math.
We get it. Right. That's
God,
okay.
I have to go to
Cool.
work.
So you know, I think it's pretty fair to say, I don't buy the crop circles thing.
What?
Yeah, I'm not buying it, and it sucks. I'll be honest with you, it sucks. Of course, it's one of the first. It's a lot like the alien autopsy, right? It's one of the first mysteries that you kind of come across as a kid. Maybe not anymore, but back then,
Oh yeah.
it was neat. It was like, oh my god, look at that weird formation. I didn't know what the fuck a fractal was as a
Well,
kid.
it was a physical thing. It was a physical phenomenon that you could go and visit, and those are so rare in this field that of course it was compelling when we were like kids.
Yeah.
Of course it was.
Yeah. And I mean, but it's a classic, and we got to talk about it. I mean, it's, but it's not as impressive as like cattle mutilation. That's way cooler. That holds way
Not
more
for the
water.
cattle.
Not for the cattle. Yeah, they don't seem to like it very much.
No.
Poor cows and sheep and whatever else. No, I mean it's when and it comes up still. People are like, well, you don't hear about it anymore. We don't hear about it anymore because we all kind of collectively decided it's probably bullshit.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's not necessarily that it doesn't happen. These weird formations do still come up from time to time, but you don't have anybody out there testing the radiation levels with their Geiger counter that they should have if they're a ufologist. But what do I know?
And they happen almost exclusively in the UK
They do happen a lot over
at
there
this
still.
point. I mean, America has had some, but very sporadic and none recently.
You know why?
Uh,
You know
because
why they
people
don't
know
have
you
them?
have a Geiger counter and now they're afraid to do it.
No, it's because in America they'll fucking shoot you for
That's true.
fucking with their crops.
Well, I mean, one, like there's fences everywhere.
Yeah,
Strict no trespassing laws
yeah,
that include allowing people to shoot you.
yeah.
So yes, good points all around there.
Like that's and as we know, aliens don't want to get shot, so they're not fucking with us Americans and our crops. They're
No, the
you know.
aliens know in America we've got nothing but ways to kill you. We
you
are
know,
spoiled for choice at this point. So
which as a farmer, I mean, I don't know how they do it in England, but they should be able to have guns. You almost need it, really for your chickens
in
and shit.
yeah, in England, actually, farmers are some of the only people who can have guns.
Oh,
They're
good.
allowed to have shotguns, and I assume based on what I've seen, I think they're probably allowed to have like those double barrel breech loading kind of shotguns. You get two shots. You can take them simultaneously if you want, which is still way more than enough to fuck somebody up. Like you will die if you get shot by one of those. But it's not, it's not the AR-15s we have here.
And I'm sure their laws are not this. I mean, that's not shoot on sight. Probably, it's probably more. They probably have the guns for the alien big cats. You don't want them coming and fucking with your chickens and your goats.
I mean,
You
that's basically it. Like farmers are allowed to have guns for farmer stuff.
Yeah, for
Um,
farmer stuff.
I mean, it is what it is. But like, in America, we would just many of us would describe the UK's gun laws as, oh boy, let's say draconian, because they are super fucking strict,
Yeah.
like just extremely strict. And I don't want to get into a political conversation about gun rights with people. So I'm not taking a side. I'm just saying they have very strict gun laws, especially compared to the United States, to the point where, like, I think a lot of people here would think it is very odd how strict they are about like weapon ownership there.
Yeah. And just being able to shoot somebody on your property. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
Something
you
that
can't even carry a knife. Like you get
yeah,
the way you get in trouble there for knives is like the way you would get in trouble here for having a concealed firearm without a permit.
yeah.
Like it's wild.
It's very serious. So, but again, but also with the UK stuff, I mean, that is where those guys faked a lot of these, and they're claiming to have about 200 under their belt. I mean, that's a good chunk of change right there. So, I mean, and as we know, there is a direct correlation between the media coverage and these crop circles. So if they're out there faking one, and then somebody gets the bright idea and goes, "I could do that too," and then now you're replicating it. I mean, how many of these are just people doing it? Well, probably, in my opinion, all of them. But just
Yeah.
just on the bare bones basics of it, probably most of them. Let's just say maybe some of them aren't. Maybe some of them aren't made by humans, and you know what? I can be swayed enough to buy that. I'm not closed-minded enough to, or think that I know everything enough to think that it is just so silly for this to be any type of alien anything at all. Of course, it could be. I want to believe, but I just don't. I'm just not buying it. I don't know, Tobias. What do you think about crop circles?
Um. Boy, what do I think? Like many things in this field, just because it can be hoaxed doesn't mean that it's all a hoax. However, that said, when it comes to crop circles, I need more than I have right now to to really sway me in favor of the idea that they are being produced by some kind of non-human intelligence. So things that I find compelling would be the history in folklore of things similar to crop circles. And so I'm talking about things like elf circles and that like those types of phenomena. I find that very interesting. However, it is also pretty undeniable that the modern era of what we would conceive of as crop circles began with that Tully UFO sighting and the saucer nest in the 1960s. There's a direct, you can draw a direct line between that and when crop circles exploded. And then when you talk to these guys who have demonstrated their ability to create them, they talk about being inspired by that story of of the saucer nest. However, that doesn't explain the saucer nest, right? So if you look at that Tully UFO sighting, we don't know what caused that. We can be reasonably certain that it wasn't a hoax, or at least we don't know that it was a hoax. And so, that being the case, even if everything inspired by it is a hoax, it doesn't explain that saucer nest sighting. And so, there could be some phenomenon, something that is capable of producing these anomalous circles of flattened vegetation that has led to stories of fairy circles and the Tully UFO sighting, right? That has inspired this hoax phenomenon of modern day crop circle creation. And the existence of one does not necessarily imply the inauthenticity of the other, if that makes sense.
It does. I think you put it. I think you're saying exactly what I want to say. You just said it better.
I really showed up today. So
You did. You did. I appreciate you. No, I mean, I agree. There's definitely weird stories here. I love that Tully story. I do. Man, I really like that one. And I think that that's genuine. I like that it disappeared in a dust of blue vapor. What the fuck's that about? I don't know.
I
But
wish I knew. I'd be inhaling that vapor so fast to see what it does.
why not? I like to party. Just who knows? I mean, right? With the melted reeds. I mean, that's man, that's a sick ass story right there. Let me tell you, that's fun. Is there some kernel of truth in here? A kernel because it's corn.
Zing.
Is there is there some kernel of truth here? Probably, I'm sure of it. But are aliens using it to communicate with us? Is the Earth using it to communicate with us? Are they dead people communicating with us? I don't think so. No, I think that most modern day, crop circle instances, we've got the technology, even as citizen scientists, to go out and test these things. Nobody's really doing that. Um, I think even if we did, we would find nothing unusual. But fucking like I said, prove me wrong, aliens or Earth or whoever the fuck is doing it. Come plant one right near me. I got a bunch of crops that you can flatten or
Oh,
whatever
hell
you
yeah.
do.
I got a field right across the street from my house. I can be out there with a Geiger counter in seconds.
Immediately, right? I mean, fucking let's get to the bottom of it. Is it something that I will ever? Will I just ignore it completely? No. If I see a crop circle headline, I'm like, well, it's interesting. I'll read about it. And if one were close to me, I would go investigate it. But just in general, I think that I'm unimpressed.
Okay. Very good.
I'm unimpressed. So. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds for this phenomenon. Maybe it'll just go away.
I think it is fading. They're like new crop circles are not being created with the rapidity we saw in the 90s, right? Like you see them crop up occasionally. Crop up. But see, I can be funny too. But not nearly as much. Like
No.
not nearly as often. They don't get the news coverage that they used to. Is I would imagine is probably why, because if somebody stops paying attention to art, people are less inspired to create it, right? So
Yeah, it just goes away. And you know what? It's a lot like the Bermuda Triangle.
yeah,
That something that was huge, right, when we were kids. Now nobody ever talks about it anymore, because we just kind of found out that like there isn't an alarming rate of people going missing or weird things happening. It just like that's just what happens when you go out to sea wherever.
Yeah, I mean, basically.
I mean,
It turns out
it's
the ocean is hella dangerous.
right, super dangerous. It wants to kill you. That's the way it is, and that's what it is, But there's no harm in wanting to believe it. Like you can take this whole episode, and go, fuck you, Asherz and Tobias. I believe in crop circles, and that's totally fine. I get the nostalgia of it. I really do.
Yeah.
So I again, like I said, am I gonna get excited if there were one right next to me? Hell yeah. I'd be like, oh fuck yeah, crop circle, let's go. You know.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You can still believe in magic. I'm not telling you
Sure.
not to.
You'd have to
Just
be so unreasonable to get mad at us over this episode. I literally just was eloquently explaining why I think there could be something like
because
some
of fairies.
yeah, like some origin, some otherworldly origin to this. So you know what? Just simmer down.
Just simmer down.
All right,
Just
it's fine.
calm
Everybody.
your tits.
Nothing to be upset about. We're all on the same team here.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
We're just making up imaginary arguments with listeners now.
I know. And probably nobody, like I said, I asked people and they all pretty much agreed with what we said here.
Yeah, I
And
think this will be a very popular opinion. People
literally
will
don't think
largely agree.
anybody, there might be one person. And they're like, fuck you guys. And we're just going to point and laugh,
I mean,
because
my feelings get hurt a little bit. Like, still, like, you don't have to be mean.
that's true. And if you want to be mean and you want to chastise us, the best way to do it, once again, is to go and give us a 5-star rating and
Oh,
leave your
yeah, that
complaint
hurts my
under the
feelings.
rating.
Yeah.
It sucks. It does. It hurts real bad. It hurts because I know that you have to go out of your way to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Teaches me a lesson.
if we pained you that much, you have to go out of your way to leave us a 5-star rating telling us how much you hate this topic and you hate our opinions. It just really sucks, man.
Brutal. Yeah.
I lose sleep over it. So anyway, again, I'm just saying, if you guys want to believe in it, believe in it. If you don't, we don't really either, for the most part. So high five.
Yeah, totally. Just hang out.
So any final thoughts on the crop circle phenomena?
Stay the fuck out of farmers' fields.
God,
They
yes.
work hard. It is a tough life. The last thing they need to deal with is you destroying their livelihoods. Just knock it off.
Yeah, leave them alone. That's don't do that. There's other places to party. If you need some ideas as a bored Midwestern teen, let me know. I'll give you a list that don't involve destroying other people's property. So.
Yes.
Well, with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.